Well, good morning. Good, beautiful Wednesday morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and we will be glad in it. I am so glad that you have been able to join us all these days and to hear each of these messages. And I thank you for taking about 10 minutes out of your morning to give God that time to allow Him to speak words into your life. And I do want to point out that it is a beautiful time of the year, and we should be encouraged as we look at this time of year, knowing that God is winding down some of His works, and He is getting ready to do a new work. Provided the Lord doesn't come back, He is getting ready to do a new work come next year, and we should rejoice in the changing of the seasons. This morning, I want to conclude our little mini-series on King Jehoshaphat. You remember that in the first and second week, we saw that the people of Moab and Mount Seir and Ammon were coming against Jehoshaphat, and he was, quite frankly, very frightened. Then a young man stood up and prophesied that the Lord was going to deliver them. Last week we saw that when they went out, that instead of sending out their armor bearers or their spear throwers or whatever happened to be usually in the lead of the army, they sent out their singers. They sent out those who sang praises to the Lord, and they led the army. And they were going along, and we know that by the very last verse that we read, that God had set ambushes. But it was based in part, at least, on the fact that the people took action based on faith in God. So today we're going to finish it out. We're going to finish it out, and we're going to look at verses 23, and we're going to look at verse 24. And this is going to finish the mini-series, and we will move on to probably a new mini-series if the Lord is willing next week. But let's read it together. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 23 and 24. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 23 and 24. 23 starts out, it says, "For the people of Ammon and Moab stood against the inhabitants of Mount Seir to utterly kill and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another." Then in verse 24 it says, now listen to this carefully, it says, "So when Judah came to a place overlooking the wilderness, they looked toward the multitude, and there were their dead bodies, fallen on the earth. No one had escaped." Now, you remember we've been talking about that there are times in our lives that the battle simply is not ours, that we need to be faithful, we need to be available, we need to listen to what the Lord is telling us to do, we need to move as He tells us to move, but in all honesty, God is fighting the battle. We talked about that. And we see that here. See, Judah, at first, Jehoshaphat, he was very scared, very frightened. And then someone stood up and gave him an encouraging word in the Lord. Then he gave Judah encouragement. He sent out these singers who praised and followed the Lord and had faith that God was going to take care of them. Now, make no mistake, they didn't know what they would find. They had to walk by faith, right? They couldn't see from where they were, the valley where all these dead bodies were laying. They didn't know with their eyes that this had already happened. They walked in faith. And in faith, they came to a place where they were overlooking the wilderness. They looked toward the multitude, and there were the dead bodies. God had indeed done just exactly what He said He would do. He had turned first Moab and Ammon against Mount Seir, and then He turned Moab and Ammon against one another, and before they knew it, the enemies of the Lord had killed one another, and God fought that battle. He turned that battle. We find stories like that throughout the Old Testament of the Bible. And we need to be encouraged today with that. We need to be encouraged today with that because there are times in our lives when God is fighting a battle. We need to be patient. We need to give Him His time. We need to take the steps that He is telling us to take. Remember that the River Jordan did not part for Joshua until the priest stepped into the river. So there are times that we must take a step forward in faith, and God will then fight the battle for us. But we need to be encouraged to know that we have a God that is so personal and so involved in our lives. He knows us so well. Not a sparrow falls from the sky that He is not aware of it. There is not a hair of our head that He's not aware of. So He is certainly aware of anything that is going on in your life that is challenging you. We need to be encouraged today that God is that personal God, and He loves us just that much. And we need to turn our faith on Him and maybe not see with our eyes, because sometimes we don't see what God is doing with our eyes. See, that's not what faith is. Faith is belief in things that are not seen. So I want you to be encouraged today. I want you to be encouraged this week to know that God is leading things just exactly as He has designed them to be led. We may not understand them. Some of them we may not like. Some of them we may not even agree with in our worldly way. But God is leading, and we need to be faithful. You be encouraged today. I pray for you, and I know you pray for me. I love you. I know you love me. I am praying for this nation. I am praying for our elections. I am praying that the right people are brought to office and brought into positions of leadership, because we need good spiritual leaders to lead us back to where we need to be as a nation. I love you. Be encouraged this week and have a great rest of the week.